Story 1. I don't know. I asked my husband out. We were in high school and I liked him. It took a few days to get the nerve, and I sent my friend to hint at him to see if he even knew I existed. I asked him out and he said yes, and we've been together 20 years. The number of people who think it's super weird I asked him out is extremely high. Most people are surprised by it. But like, why should I sit there waiting to even see if he'll ever notice me? I asked him out and I'm glad I did. Story 2. I've studied psychology briefly and was forced to take a course in women's studies for diversity, equity, and inclusion purposes, and armed with that skill, I'll try to provide an answer to this. A man is defined by his character, his actions, and his ability to withstand adversity. Most accusations of not being a real man fall within this category. Being agreeable and well-liked is not related to manliness but more of a social bonus of sorts. But according to Simone de Beauvoir's book, The Second Sex, women are defined in opposition to men, and a key point of women's value lies in being desirable as an object of sexual and romantic interest. This is one of the things feminists complain about when they talk about the objectification of women. With this in mind, if a man approaches a woman and is shot down, he still went after what he wanted and took it like a man when he was rejected. For a woman, on the other hand, she was rejected because she was not desirable in one of the primary domains of what it means to be a woman. Story 3. And risk humiliating rejection? Who could take that pressure? It's a basic misunderstanding of the opposite gender mentality. Everyone should be free to ask anyone, but breaking those learned cultural beliefs is hard. Story 4. Because they don't want to. Don't misunderstand me. I am not saying they have to or that anyone should be pressured to ask anyone out. No. I am just stating a fact. If people don't want to do something they don't have to, then they won't. Look at me, I have never asked a woman out in my life. I am 41 because I don't want to and I don't have to. Story 5. The simplest answer is that they don't like men as much as men like women. We could have an interesting discussion about gender roles, social constructs, psychology, and biology, but personally, I think you can reduce the should I ask them out question to risk versus reward. Women tend to be more risk-averse and often find men on average unattractive or at least not attractive enough to consider based on looks alone. Higher risk, lower reward. I've never seen a woman have a problem making the first move when the guy was an 8 or above. Story 6. Honestly, I find it backfires. Myself, along with many women, noticed that when it is us doing the asking out, men start making very little effort. It is like they know it is a given, so you get the bare minimum from them. Story 7. I asked a man out and we went on a couple of dates, but he was horrible at communicating between dates. I stopped carrying the conversation, and we stopped talking. Story 8. I asked my boyfriend out by carving a mushroom out of wood and said, "I like you very much." Cheesy, I know, but I love being cheesy. I used to be scared to ask men out because it was outside the norm. As I got older, I became more confident. I also think women feel men are supposed to ask women out if they are more traditional. I'm not traditional, so I don't know. Story 9. Because that is one of the traditional gender roles that benefits them, and they are not willing to try to change. Just like they like the man to pay for everything. They only challenge tradition if it benefits them. Story 10. All the same reasons men don't ask more women out, plus the lack of expectation to do so and a bunch of messaging that amounts to men don't like that under assorted explanations. Story 11. Perhaps you should ask an Ask Women sub instead of an Ask Men sub. It's getting really tiring that every post on here is, "Why do women do X? Why are you asking us, bro?" Story 12. Although there are some fears like approaching a gay or taken man or putting men in an uncomfortable position by asking at the wrong place, I mostly go outside to shop or study, and I don't want to bother people while they're studying or at work. Those are just normal fears which I can get over. For me especially, it's because it's been ingrained in me that the girl asking out is wrong, makes you look desperate, and will lead to bad men and people using you or looking down on you and thinking you're a bit of a slut. Is it true? Probably not, but 11 years of being taught that won't disappear immediately, so it's a work in progress. Story 13. It can be scary if you are not used to doing that. There are indeed women who ask men out, and they are more comfortable doing so due to experience. Story 14, men say they like it, and maybe they do in the immediate, but in my experience, it sets the dynamic off in a way that men often don't actually prefer. Story 15, because they are socialized and raised without the option to train their egos for rejection. I witness how my relatives and neighbors raise their daughters like little princesses, literally using these words, and do not set any boundaries with them in a healthy way. Most women are terrified of rejection. Reject a woman, and most of them will melt. Their egos just cannot handle it. Obviously, not every woman. My ex was great, and almost all of her female friends were down to earth, self-aware, great people. Story 16. I am a woman. For quite a while when I was on the dating scene, I stopped asking because men said that me doing that was either overbearing, emasculating, or that I was trying to take over a man's job. I heard on more than one occasion that it was too aggressive and not feminine enough to ask out a man. And then I hear the reverse almost constantly as well. I think women are just as confused about it as men at this point. It was why I stopped caring after a while and asked them out anyway. Most people don't find me the most approachable since I have some serious resting face. Anxiety is also a thing, and I would rather have the rejection then and there than worry over whether or not they might ask me out. Story 17. Simple supply and demand. Unless a guy is super attractive, both in the physical and social sense, he has to approach women because women have multiple men chasing them. So they have no reason to ask men out. In the dating market, women have a higher demand than men. Exceptions are there, of course. Also, unlike what people would have you believe, women aren't used to rejection like men are. Story 18. Because men take that as an invitation to be overly creepy or sexual right away despite this. A woman initiating conversation does not mean a man will let her set the pace. It means the opposite. Men take it as an open invitation to disrespect her boundaries. Also, all women I know initiate dates, conversations, and sex when they like the guy enough. Overall, women desire relationships with men far less than men desire relationships with women. Story 19. Because even unattractive women get asked out eventually. They don't have to put themselves out there. They don't have to face rejection. They just have to wait. Some wait longer than others. But waiting is easier than no. Story 20. It is just the difference between how men and women are socialized from a young age. Women are taught to be passive and expect men to take the lead. Men are taught that if they do not act for themselves, nothing will ever happen for them. Story 21. Same reason you're not bombarded with advertisements for luxury watches or high-end cars. People will pursue them regardless. That's one extreme. On the other side, think of a multi-level marketing scheme. People are going to try everything to get you interested, even though you probably aren't interested at all. They go out of their way to get your attention and get you to lower your guard. In general, men really want women. Most women can get some male attention, but more likely than not, it's a lot of guys they're not interested in. Men really have to sell themselves since they're competing for women's attention. You don't have to be desperate. If you're a kind, handsome guy, you will have a much easier time. Likewise, if you're not the most handsome but are smart, funny, and hardworking, I notice some women look past it a lot more than men do who are more attentive to looks on average. Story 22. Because they just don't want to do it. They don't want to bear the risk of rejection. They take things way more personally than we do, so they leave it to us. It's literally that simple. Story 23. Women will stare at you for ages just so you'll approach, and I never usually do. Women should be approaching more because if not, you only get stuck with who approaches you, and you might not get the guy you really want. Story 24. I've literally asked out every man I've had any type of relationship with. I'm plus-sized and a tomboy, so I just had to take charge. It is disheartening because I felt like I had to coerce the situations, not creepily. Just had to spell out that I like them and flat out ask if they like me too. And most times they've needed to think about it, to even get a morsel of attention. Now that I'm 40, I'm done trying. I haven't given up, but I've given up attempting to make myself more palatable. I lift 3 times a week, drink a gallon of water a day, track my food and stay under a calorie limit, cook at home all but 2 meals a week, sleep 6.5 hours a night, walk my dog an hour a day, and I'm still plus-sized. I have been since puberty. There isn't much more I can do. Story 25. Because many women like traditional anti-feminist gender roles when it benefits them. You never hear about them wanting to pay the check or support their man financially, do you? There's a reason for that. Story 26. Talking to women about this, I have been told it is mostly the same reason men do not make the first move, fear of rejection. Add in the societal pressures of it not being their role, and it is even harder for them. I am so glad my wife overcame both of those and asked me to get a cup of coffee. Story 27. As most said, they don't have to. Even an average-looking woman has at least a couple of suitors at all times. In my own experience, I have been asked out a couple of times by women, but usually a specific set of circumstances needs to be met. She has to really like you, she needs to already be familiar with you, and preferably, you both need to be in situations where conversation is happening naturally. And even then, they mostly won't make it clear they're inviting you out on a date. Instead, they'll say something like, "Oh, we should go out for coffee sometime," and then expect you to take the initiative and set up the actual date in place. Or they will hint that they would like to go somewhere but have no one to go with or something like that. Story 28. You should ask on Ask Women. Just kidding, that's just going to get you a lot of verbal abuse. The actual reason is that females are the selective breeders in humans, and so men are the ones who must audition and attempt to be selected. The biological reasons for this aren't that complicated, but it's probably more information than you want. Story 29. Listening to my sister and her friends while I was growing up showed me that women will do what they can to protect themselves from emotional losses. Even though women preach equality, they still like how tradition puts more pressure on men when it comes to dating, and they are not looking to argue for equality in that department. Story 30. Almost all the issues women have with dating would disappear if they had the courage to just ask men out instead. They complain about men hitting on them at inappropriate times when they're just trying to shop or go to the gym. They complain about creepy guys or guys they're not attracted to hitting on them. This goes away as they'd be the ones choosing. No man is going to say, "Oh my God, I'm just trying to shop and you're hitting on me. I feel so violated." No man would care. They'd be flattered. Story 31. Because they have options, men hardly ever approach me. The last time was about 6 months ago, and that was after 10 years of meeting men online because nobody asks for my number in person. Story 32. That's one of the many instances where women don't mind patriarchy and gender roles. According to most of them, it is not their job to do that. Most consider the approach as chasing, and they do not chase because they are the prize, not men. Story 33. They ask Chad for dates all the time. I know a guy who pretty much never approaches, and he gets an insane amount of action. Most guys go their whole lives without being asked out by a sober, sane woman. Story 34. It is because women cannot take rejection. For all of the complaints that I hear from women about how much men are childish and immature when they are rejected by women, some of the most toxic and disrespectful responses to rejection that I have seen have mostly come from women. I am a fairly decent-looking man, and women that do not quite meet my standards attempt flirting with me from time to time. When I do not reciprocate, I have had some very nasty and disrespectful responses from women. I was a stalker at a grocery store, and there was this woman who decided that she was going to command my full attention for as long as she saw fit. When she saw that my attempts to help her and get back to my job were getting in the way of her prancing back and forth to give me googly eyes, I escorted her directly to 3 items that she needed help with. When I made myself scarce after that so that I could give her time to make her purchases and leave, I heard her around the corner complaining about how rude I was to her for not helping her. I guess she felt entitled to have me give her a personal tour of the entire store if that is what she wanted from me. She kept going on about how they needed to get rid of employees like me, but I was nothing but helpful and respectful to her and did nothing to deserve that type of energy from her. This woman was actively trying to get me fired so that she would not have to see the handsome, her words, not mine, guy that brushed off her advances when she comes to the store and shops in the future. Shaking my head. I have had women accuse me of being gay simply because I was not particularly interested in flirting back and forth with them because I had seen past behavior from them that caused me to become not attracted to them. I am not lowering myself or my standards just to babysit some petty, vindictive, and insecure woman's feelings. If you want to be a horrible person, that is fine, but I do not have to be attracted to you in spite of your messed up personality, or else I am gay. Story 35. Having men be the approachers gives women power. Imagine asking the same question of men if the reverse were true. In this alternate world, men are being approached by women all the time. They can choose from among their suitors. Men would never change the dynamic, so why would a woman in our world? Approaching is giving away power, and this is something people in general do not do. Add to that the pain and embarrassment of rejection, which women as a rule do not take well. I haven't looked at the thread in total, but I know there are multiple horror stories of women freaking out over rejection. I think it may hurt them more than it does us, as more of their self-worth is tied up in appearance, and being desirable puts them at the front of the pack in a way that does not apply to men. Anyway, kudos to anyone who has the courage to do it, especially the ladies.